everybody, this is Steve Drevashevsky. I am here today at Motivational Mindset. Awesome guest in store for you today, Brianna McCabe. She is a content generator, a social media personality, a storyteller, video production. I mean, she does a lot of stuff, public speaking, and now a published author. Brianna, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
And so you wrote a book called "The Red Flags I've Repeatedly Ignored."
I did. I did indeed.
Sounds like my life.
It was my life. So
okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. The journey there, getting the why write the book. Just tell me the story.
Yeah. So thank you again for that intro. That was so nice. That was the best title I've ever heard. Thank you.
Well, it's all stuff that I do my research.
Thank you. I've always wanted to write a book, and I've always been told that I had, from professors and teachers and even friends and family, I would always write people handwritten letters. I just always gravitated to the art of writing. So I always knew I wanted to hopefully one day write a book. And I didn't think it was that far-fetched, because I just felt like I could do it if I just put my mind down, because I tend to just get in a zone. So there was one book that always inspired me. Have you ever read "I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell" by Tucker Max?
No, but it's got a great title.
I have to mail you a copy. So I read this in middle school. I probably shouldn't have read it in middle school because it was pretty raunchy, but it was a male's perspective. It's not a book for everybody, but it was a male's perspective on just all of these females that he would date, that he would smash and pass. It was kind of vile, kind of dirty, but really funny. And I thought, okay, there needs to be a female perspective on this. So I always kept that in the back of my mind, but I didn't know how I would go about that. But then as I got older, I just found myself in the most chaotic of situations with men, similar to Tucker Max. And it was I can't make this shit up. Like sometimes you hear, reality is better than fiction. So I started just writing about all of these crazy experiences that I found myself in then.
In the dating world. I mean, the dating world now, I can't even, I've been married a long time, but the dating world today, it just seems so, I don't know, confusing and
so
just
bad. It's so bad.
It's like, you got to swipe left, you do this. I don't know. People use these terms. I'm like, that wasn't used to meet people like at places, Now it's like a lot of it is on the internet, and it just, I've heard a lot of horror stories myself of people going out to meet somebody and saying, this is not the person.
That happened to me. That's not in the book, but that happened to me. I got catfished. I met a guy on Bumble one time.
That's the name for it, right? Catfish.
Yeah. I met a guy on Bumble. Like his profile picture, he was this big, tall, masculine guy who was like strumming a cello in his picture. I'm like, that's oddly attractive. I was in Asbury the same night that he was apparently in Asbury. And then it was the end of the night. I was at Johnny Max. It was the end of the night. I was with a group of my friends. And this short little guy taps me on my back. He was probably a little over 5 feet, which whatever, but why lie about it?
Yeah.
But nothing like his picture. And I was just like, all of my friends were like, is this your son? And I'm like, go away.
That's great.
So
that's great.
Yeah, but yeah, online dating it's rough nowadays. I can't speak to what it was like in the past. I can only speak for what I'm going through now.
Yeah.
Rough. But
where did he get the picture from? Was it him in the picture just a long time ago, or was it
no?
Like went to Walmart and found a picture of somebody or something? Or
probably just went on Instagram. Probably there was a few pictures of him though, and I'll never forget it. I was like, wait, Mike or whatever his name was, Mike, this is you? And he was just like, well, I was like, well, are you going to address the elephant in the room? Like, this clearly is not matching up. It's wildly bizarre. I don't know what you thought the next step would be, but aren't relationships built off trust? Like,
you would think, I don't think lying is the best first step. in meeting somebody. Because I mean, especially
Oh,
something so obvious, like it's not like, that's not something you're going to meet the person, and then what happens?
yeah,
They're
yeah.
going to know it's not you.
Relying on your profile app, red flag. So I realized that
There you go.
there were so many red flags that I would experience. That one, I obviously, after that, I just said, I'm not moving forward. That was a
Yeah.
blaring, I mean, you changed who you were, but there were other red flags that I just kept experiencing throughout my life. And I moved forward with anyway. So, men who just weren't the nicest to their parents or didn't really seem to have a solid group of friends or didn't make good decisions in life. And I would just proceed anyway, because really the basis of the book is I dealt with a lot of like low self-esteem, low self-worth, and I turned to men to hopefully help me fill that void. And
Yeah.
it ended up, I was here, then they would knock me down, and I just kept, it was a very slippery slope until I reached the bottom, and I said, I can't live
Yeah.
here anymore and do this. So that's really what inspired.
And that's a very common occurrence. A lot of times people, when you have certain feelings inside, you try to look for some type of external fix for it.
Yeah.
And like something else or somebody else is going to help me with that and make, and kind of help me build that. And then, you find out, there's a funny poem. Well, it's not funny, but there's a poem from years ago that I used to really bring out to a lot of people. And I would say, it's called "Recovery is an Inside Job."
Why does this sound familiar?
I don't know. You might have read it. I don't. It's out there. It's on the internet.
Okay.
But it's years ago. It was just a handout I used to give out to people, and I'd say recovery is an inside job, and it was all about how you need to look inward to fix most things.
True. I realized because the book helped me, but then I started to go to therapy because I was just like, I need to fix what's going on inside because I'm just not making, for somebody so grounded, you say this beginning intro, I work a full-time job. I'm a professor, I'm writing a book. Like you would just think on the outside looking in, she looks like she has her shit together, but I was battling some demons, and it wasn't just the men. I turned to liquor, I turned to food, anything to help me feel better. And I just realized I had to get better inwardly, because otherwise I was just going to keep going down these paths that just weren't healthy.
No, and that's the thing. It's like you start looking at these external things and you try to fill that void with whatever you can. And it's a very common occurrence. And a lot of times, sometimes the people who have all this stuff going on and they have the most together, there's a lot going on the inside people don't see and they don't know about.
Yeah, it was rough, and it was rough too, even trying to talk to my friends about it, because again, they would be like, "Oh, you're such a bubbly person. You're always so busy," and I'm like, "I'm hurting so much." So, yeah, it's interesting perception, I guess.
So writing the book sounds like it was kind of an outlet, right? So it was kind of like one of these things where it was like, okay, this is, I went through all these things, these red flags, and I want, I don't want to give too much of the book away, but I certainly want to get into some of the red flags and certain things that I'm sure there's some good tidbits you can share in there. But it's kind of like one of those things where, writing this book kind of helped you process all that and move through it.
It did. It honestly helped me more than I thought it would. So when I first went to my publisher, so the book started really, it was to help me cope through my latest breakup at the time. That it was just I was in a very toxic, I don't know if that's sensationalized, but I was in a very toxic relationship where I was just mentally and emotionally abused. I was very low. So the only thing I felt confident in after being kind of stripped of all of my worth was my ability to write. So I started writing poems, and then the poems just kept getting longer and longer, turned to chapters. And I showed my mom, I'll never forget this. I showed my mom, she's like, "Brie, this is really good." I'm like, "Mom, you just sang this because you're my mom." So I sent it.
You have to say that.
Yeah, you have to. I'm going to hold it and tell me it's good. So I sent it to my professors, and they were just like, "This is really good." And they wrote books. They were like, "You should start like reaching out." So I started kind of putting my feelers out there. I connected with what's called like an indie publisher, and her name is Jen, and she's beautiful, beautiful soul. So I started writing this, and it was very funny at first because I tend to go to humor to help me cope. I feel like a lot of people tend to do that, honestly, but it was very, haha, this happened to me. Haha, now this. And it was just, she was like, "Brie, you have to dig deeper." So It honestly, it was a 2.5 year process. It was horrible writing sometimes. I can't lie because I was digging deep. I was hitting all of
Mm.
these issues. I talk about my daddy issues. I talk about being bullied as a kid for being overweight. I talk about losing my house in a home fire back in the fourth grade and being homeless. I talk about all of these things that just impacted me growing up in a not so functional household. And it was a lot to unpack. But
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
at the end, I feel so much more powerful because I addressed everything head on and I feel like I own it now. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Not
yeah, it was
only did you
therapeutic.
own it, it's kind of like you owned it, but then you kind of threw it out there for the world to look at,
I'm like, here
right?
you go.
So that's kind of, yeah, well, that's kind of like, that takes a lot of courage, I think, to kind of, I mean, a lot of people keep journals or diaries, and, I have several of them that I write in throughout my
Aw.
day. Yeah. um, but, to kind of take that and say, okay, now I'm going to take it and I'm just going to make it public, you know,
Yeah,
for everybody. And
it's
that had to be a bit scary, right?
yeah, if you ask me, so a few months ago, I was actually once I finished the book and it was going through kind of just like what's called line editing, so making sure the commas, periods, quotation marks, everything are good. I was reading it and I said, "Oh my God, this is actually happening." Yeah, you say
I
you're writing a
actually
book.
did this.
Yeah. And I said, what if people hate this? Then I started getting imposter syndrome. I just started feeling like, oh my God, what if this isn't good? My publisher was like, Bree, not everybody's going to love it. Art's subjective, which she's right. And then I talked to my therapist about it and she told me something that I thought was so powerful. So, and it made me feel good about it. So she was like, back in the day, you used to play sports, right? I said, yeah, I played softball. And she was like, well, when you were getting ready for a tournament or a game, what would pump you up? Was it the boos from the opposing team, or was it the cheers from the people on your side and in your stands saying, "Let's go, you're going to kick their ass"? And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." I would get pumped up and get the vibes from
Yeah.
my crowd and my fans. So she's like, "Of course, everybody's going to love your book. You're going to have people who knock it, but you have to ride the wave of the people who are sending you the positive vibes." And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. I was like, I'm going to do that. So even if one person likes it, I'm just going to ride that wave. But as long as I like it, that's all that
Well,
matters, I think.
that's where it really counts, right? I mean, you're going to
Yeah.
like it, and I'm sure it's going to reach people, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to identify with it. And then, of course, there's going to be, I hate to use this term, the haters that are out there, but they're out there, right? So
They're
it's
out.
kind of the same reason if, like, what I try to do nowadays, like if I post something, if I put something up, I really try not to read the comment section,
It's
just
so hard
because.
though.
Well, it is hard because you want to, and then even if I read it and I go, oh, and then my first instinct is to defend it or to, go in there and fight back or push back, and I try really hard now not to do that because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you always have a fan in me. Everything you post, I'm like, love, but
Oh, I appreciate that. I
yeah.
appreciate
But
that. Give me time, I'll offend you somehow. No, but no, no. Like I said, it's people get upset about the strangest things these days too, and that's why I was like, so there's going to be people who are going to love it. There's going to be people who are going to, obviously not like it for whatever reason. I always look at it's funny. I did an interview because we were talking earlier about the shark diving and stuff that I do, and I did an interview several years ago. With was it World Travel Magazine? It's an online magazine. It's based out of Europe, and it got picked up by other people. And what happened was somewhere along the line. No, I'm sorry, I'm lying to you. It was God, what's that one? I can't
red
remember.
flag if he lies. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at least I'm being honest about it. I lied about it. Um, but no, no, it was the Daily Mail. Actually, that's it. Daily Mail wrote the article.
Oh,
Then it got picked up by
okay.
World Traveler and then all these other things, right? And somewhere along the line, one of the authors decided it was a good idea to change the article to Shark diver calls sharks cute water puppies,
I mean,
right?
that's adorable.
And I had said that in the interview somewhere. Somewhere in the interview I had talked about it, and people got mad. People got upset. And I mean, there was
Why?
some stuff in that comment. I mean, I stopped looking at it because it was like one of those things. Like people were just really tearing me up because I referred to sharks as water puppies. And it was just like,
anything better to do. Like they're cute water puppies. Okay.
I don't know. It was one innocent statement, I thought, and they took it and made it the headline. And like I said, people were like, he's gonna die because like Steve Irwin, and they were going crazy. And it was like, oh my God. It was just one of those things. Like, you don't expect sometimes how people react to certain things. So yeah, you're gonna run into the people that are gonna be negative. They're just negative people anyway.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You're not going to change that. Sometimes people are just, they want to, I always say the internet's like a bunch of people walking around town with a rock in their hand looking for a window to throw it through.
That's actually a really good analogy.
Yeah. It's pretty much what it is these days. But so, red flags, share some of these red flags. I mean, other than the one you just caught me in lying about the.
Yeah. So a big red flag. Well, I call out, I want to say over 3 dozen throughout the book. So really quick though, too, I just want to clarify. So the book, I do call out red flags, but then I call out because it's technically a self-help book. So it's not really an autobiography. So I'll call out a red flag. So if he calls his exes crazy without any clarification, explanation, just blanket statement, all of my exes are crazy. Then I go into, okay, how I rationalize that, what I should have done if it happens to me again. So it's a workbook. But so that's one, because, why are you just general blanketing saying all of your exes are crazy? That's also disrespectful. So that's one. I had an ex.
Well, the chances are, if you're saying all of your exes are crazy, well, the chances of that are pretty slim. So that might come back to you somewhere.
And what's the common denominator? I don't know.
Exactly.
So, but these are all circumstantial. Another one. So, are you familiar with Snapchat? I'm acting as if you're old, but
Is that what the kids are calling it today?
I'm
familiar with it. I don't have it, but yeah, I do know it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the messages will disappear after 24 hours and then it goes away. So I used to go after a guy who solely communicated on Snapchat, which that's a little sketchy. But part of me was just
never any record of anything.
He wants to send me pictures and he just wants to be free. In my mind, at that time, I was so low, I didn't care. So that's another red flag. Yeah, no record. What are you trying to hide? It was very bizarre. I'm trying to think of other ones. If he speaks to his parents incredibly disrespectfully, especially, public or private, that's an indication of how he may view you. If he doesn't seem to have a stable foundation in life in terms of he just constantly bounces around, so there's a ton of different things in there. So
it would be awesome if relationships, I think maybe somewhere along the line, this might happen at some point, but you get a resume. Like you're applying for a job, right? Like, I want 3 references of former girlfriends. 3 references. Just like you're getting a job, right?
Your previous work experience, your accolades, your awards. I need to know.
You should have a CV for dating. I mean, that's really, that would be a great idea for someone to start a website.
We can go into business doing this together. That would be hysterical. Yeah.
Just make people submit resumes and have former relationships as you have to have at least 2 former relationships that are willing to reference for you.
That's really good. A part of me is like, am I a red flag?
I could see your wheels turning though. I can see.
Yeah, I'm literally going to brainstorm this business plan later tonight. So thank you for.
I probably just gave away $1 billion idea to somebody.
You want to edit this out? I don't know.
I don't edit really much of anything. So unless, like I said, it's I hardly ever do that. But yeah, no, it's that would probably be a pretty popular, I don't know, maybe, for people that are actually really want to get into an honest relationship, it would be popular. People who want to play games wouldn't.
Yeah, I did have you seen the show Love is Blind on Netflix?
No, I don't think I saw that. No.
So it's basically you start dating somebody in what's called pods, and you never get to for a week or 10 days. You meet 20 other people or whatever the number is, and you never get to physically see them, but you talk to them. So me and my publisher, to promote my book, we tried to kind of mimic that event.
Okay.
And we did something down south over the summer where we did a blindfolded speed dating, and it was a huge turnout.
I was going to ask you about that because that I actually did find in my research, and it's
you found that? Oh my goodness!
highlights from blindfolded speed dating at the Safer or the Seafarer. Yeah.
Such a cute bar in in the Highlands, but so we put that together. There was, I want to say we tried to limit it at first. So 20 females, 20 males. And then we had volunteers. We blindfolded both parties. The females stayed at the tables. We helped the men navigate. And then I would prompt the conversations by giving them a question to answer. It was an obscure one. Like, do you believe in aliens? What's your worst fear in life? It was very cool, unique questions, and three couples actually ended up matching.
Really? So
it was
wow.
Yes,
cool.
Yes, and they went on a few dates. I haven't stayed in touch with them since, but I said that's a really cool premise. So you're falling in love with somebody's mind,
personality, not their mind, their personality, and rather than the way we first. I mean, and that's kind of like goes back to our basic instinct from when we were cave people, right? It's like you're constantly sizing things up. We look with our eyes first to determine if something's good or not, and then to kind of take that sense out, and just kind of go with, what you're experiencing verbally.
There was also another couple that matched, but I don't know if the physical attraction was there. So I do think physical attraction is definitely.
It has to be there at some point. Yeah.
I don't know if it has to be to the scope and the grandiosity that we make it now, but so it was very interesting. It was a really cool event. We did it, I think, 3 more times before the season ended this summer, but it was cool. It was really cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Like I said, I was going to ask you about that because I did find that somewhere in my searching around. I also found you also do a little bit of podcasting yourself.
I do. So I do a podcast at my full-time job, Hackensack Meridian Health. Well, I did pre-COVID, but then my role kind of shifted. But yeah, so I would interview doctors on kind of interesting health topics. But outside of my professional job, I'm sometimes a guest host on this one podcast. It's a cigar podcast. I don't even smoke cigars, but for the sake of the show, I do.
Really? So they make you smoke a cigar?
They make me take just 1 or 2 puffs to make it look like I smoke a cigar, but I don't. I really don't. I get a little head high and I'm like, I got to stop this. But yes, I'll be a guest host on that. And I like that podcast. It's a very conversational, because cigar lounges by nature, you just talk. So it's a really chill podcast. And then I'm an actress / podcast host on this other comedy podcast called No Filter, it pushes the envelopes. No political party is safe. It's really cool. It's a really cool podcast.
Yeah. Because I'm looking at it right now. It says Brianna hosts podcast segments about culture, health, politics, and life.
The whole shebang.
And I was watching one of them earlier. It was like a skit. Looked like a skit about voting, about stealing votes. Yeah. It was good.
Thank you so much.
No, I like I said,
that was my first time ever acting. I was super nervous.
Well, hey, it's a skill. It's an art. It takes people years and years to get good, and you did a great job. You did a great job. So getting back to the book a little bit. I mean, there were you said it was kind of like one of those things where you just felt like it was something you needed to do. You put it out there. What were some of the barriers? Were there any real barriers that came up, or any time you felt like you were going to give up or quit, or because it's a process writing a book?
Yeah, there were so many times. That's why I just got the cover, the finalized cover. I'm going to do a blast for the cover in the pre-sale on November 22nd, but 11/22/22, I like it. But so I've been doing this for like 2.5 years. So there was a lot of barriers emotionally. Like I said, I had to dive even deeper than I already was. So that was grueling, mentally and emotionally. I would be up until 4:00 in the morning, just crying as I typed. I laugh about it now, but it was really tough, just reliving those moments of being bullied or reliving how it felt as a kid, hoping your dad would come around and he just left you. It was rough. And then just going back to all of the relationships and how these men would treat me, but also how I would allow them to treat me. It was sad. I want to give that younger version of myself a hug. So emotionally, there was a lot of barriers and points where I honestly wanted to throw my hands up and just say, I can't do this. Physically, like I said, my sleep schedule was non-existent. I would be up until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on a random Tuesday writing just because I couldn't stop the flow. I was all about the flow. I couldn't stop it. And then I would have to wake up for work at 8:30 and I was just exhausted. I would also lock myself in my room literally for weeks on end because I'm very type A. So I'm like, well, if I start this chapter, I can't start another one. I have to finish this chapter. And writer's block is real. That's another real phenomenon that really plagues the person. It drains the life out of you. And my friends, though they were very supportive and I love them so much, I don't think they understood the complexity of what I was actually going through. So it strained some of my relationships only momentarily. But then they realized like, oh, she's really writing a book. Like she's really doing this. And they were more understanding, but it was rough. I didn't get to see a lot of my friends for a while. It was really, really rough. And then even just the intricacies of the book itself. So going through rounds of revisions for the cover. And I'm just like, really? They can't nail the cover? Or going through edits and my one editor saying you should word it this way. And I'm tied to my words. I'm like, I don't want to cut this, or I love how this sounds, but then having to come to a compromise, I'm a little stubborn. So I'll admit that, but it was really rough. But then I took a step back and I realized, okay, I made it this far. These people obviously have more experience than I do. I need to be open to it. And honestly, I'm really proud of the product. And I look back at where I was when I started and how we're on literally iteration like 273 at this point of a 200 plus page book. Steve, it's crazy. It's wild, but I'm so proud of how far I've come. And it was rough, but I really think if you have that passion of writing a book, it's going to suck, but it's going to feel so worthwhile once it's done. I can't hear you for some reason.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay.
Like, all right. Can you hear me now? Good.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a Verizon guy. No, I have my lanyard on here, my little thing, and it went out for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, nothing. What I said was nothing worth anything. Is easy. I mean, you got to work for it. If it was easy, everybody be writing books. And then like I said, you put in the work. You went through the barriers. You did what you needed to do. What would you like people to take away from the book?
The biggest. So I have one personal takeaway that I hope people get, and then a general takeaway. So the first takeaway is, though I call out men, I change everybody's identities. Some of the men are even composites of multiple men. I don't want to call out any particular man. I change literally everything about them, from what they look like to their ethnicity, to their names, to where they live, every single thing. I'm not writing this book out of spite. Some of my friends joke and say that, but that's absolutely not the case. It's not really about them at all. It's about me and all of the lessons that I went through that I hope I can share with other women, so they don't have to, or people in general, so they don't have to go through what I went through. But so I want to reiterate, it's not about the men, and by no means am I like that spiteful ex, but some people may say that.
You're not the crazy
but the
ex.
biggest, I don't know. I could be. But the biggest takeaway is I went down paths. I put up with, can I curse? Like bullshit. Through so much. And for so long, I always had this victim mentality. And I was like, why are they doing this to me? Why? And I had to seriously take a step back and say, but I am allowing this. And why am I allowing this? So honestly, the biggest takeaway, and that's kind of the last chapter. So the book is broken down into raunchy rendezvous. So those are kind of I hope my jobs don't judge me, but if they do, it's whatever. Raunchy rendezvous, roller coaster relationships, the rock bottom moments. So those are really the deep, low moments in my life. And then revelation. So the revelation at the end really is you need to love yourself, and you need to start building it. Because if you don't have self-love, you don't have boundaries, you don't trust your gut, you just let people walk all over you. Maybe you people please because you just want to satisfy everybody, but not yourself. So you need to love yourself before you ever enter another relationship. And I go into that in more depth, but that's really the main goal that I'm hoping to call out, because otherwise you're the walking red flag for allowing all of this. So we can call people red flags all we want, but at the end of the day, it's you if you're allowing this.
You gotta, what are you gonna tolerate? What are you gonna deal with? I always say life is a theater, right? And in that theater, you get to choose what seats people are in, right? You don't need to have everybody in the front row. Right? There's some people
like that.
People that need to go into the bleachers. Some people need to go in the nosebleed section, and you get to decide. And people can move around in your theater throughout your life, but you need to figure out where that is. And that's where your responsibility is, to try to figure out where people kind of fit in your life. And some people don't even fit in the theater at all. It's just
that's beautiful. I never heard that analogy. I really enjoy that, actually. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Well, no worries. Every once in a while I come up with something. So that and the dating site with the resumes, I think, I'm giving.
Yeah. Are you trying to steal my thunder here? No, I'm
not at all. No.
I'm only kidding.
Yeah. So, so the big takeaway I'm thinking, I'm hearing from you is for you is the taking responsibility for your own decisions and what you're doing and where you go from here, and to love yourself. Because I couldn't agree more. To really be loved, you have to first love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the cliche, you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's true. It's very true. And I was just emptying myself and I was drained.
Yeah. Oh, it's exhausting trying to please other people and not worrying about yourself and not taking care of yourself in an emotional way,
Yeah. If you would have met me, it's crazy because when I first started writing this book too, so again, I told you it was very humorous, but I was very depressed. So 2 years ago, after dealing with this last relationship, I wasn't leaving my bed. I was in a very, very, very negative mental place. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was going to therapy. It was really, really rough. And just to see also my mental and emotional transition throughout this book, I could literally cry. I'm just so happy how far I've come. And I really hope this book can help others dig themselves out of that hole if they were me 2 years ago. So I really hope I could help at least one person.
Well, that's really what it's about, right? To help other people and help yourself at the same time, and it sounds like you're in a great place now, which is awesome. Any thoughts on writing a part 2 or a second book or?
I think I need a break for a little bit, honestly, because it was draining, but who knows? I do love to write. So I would be not telling the truth if I said I probably wouldn't write another book, but I don't know. Who knows what the world may throw my way.
Hey, I have a feeling we'll see another one from you. I have a feeling. I have a feeling there's at least another couple in there to push out there.
Maybe I'll go on a shark diving excursion with you, and I'll write my story there.
There you go. Hey, it's definitely an experience, and hopefully, I'll just say when you get certified.
Yes.
You know where to find me, and we'll definitely get you out there and hanging out with the sharks. So
little water puppies, right?
My former CEO said to me once, he goes, he had mentioned something about, he said something about the sharks. And he said, I got to get Keyman Insurance on you. And I said, Don, at least down there, I know who the sharks are.
Ooh.
So, just, up here, I have no problem underwater. Here's where I usually get myself in trouble.
I like that too. So, you need to make that into a shirt, at least down here.
Underwater, I know I know who the sharks are. They got disguises up here a little bit. So, but, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Is there anything else? You want to plug where people could find you or any of that stuff?
Yeah. So thank you again for having me. If anybody wants to learn more about the book, feel free to follow me on Instagram. It's at the Brianna, Brianna McCabe, MCCABE. My book, The Red Flags I've Repeatedly Ignored, is semi-autobiographical meets self-help book-ish, is dropping early next year, but pre-sales starting 11/22/22. I'm so excited, but thank you so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you. You're literally the best.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm glad you came on. It's definitely, this is the second episode of Motivational Mindset. It's my, second podcast that I've put myself out there on, and like I said, I'm happy to have you on. I think this was a great show, great experience having you on. So I
And the
appreciate it.
first one was amazing. I was just like, oh my God, I love her.
Yeah, Jen Grasso. Yeah, she's great. She's great
Yeah.
too. Like I said, I've been fortunate. Now I just don't know, between her and then you, I don't know how I'm going to follow this up.
Oh,
So
you're so sweet.
we'll have to figure that out. But thank you so much for coming on. I
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, check out Jen McCabe. The red flags I repeatedly ignored. Don't ignore those red flags. They're not good to ignore. You got to check them out. So, all right, check out the book. And this is Steve Drevashevsky, Motivational Mindset. See you next time.